Hey, folks, thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra Ansari. So, we're talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I suffer from migraines. I can tell you firsthand how horrible they are. So, I'm very excited to be teaming up with the Norton Neuroscience Science Institute today because they helped me. I met Dr. Brian Plato through a story and talked to him about my personal struggles, and he got me on the right track with finding some relief in my life. So that's why we want to talk about how you can as well. Dr. Plato, thank you so much for joining us. First, let's talk about migraines. They're debilitating. They're
Yeah,
awful.
they
Um,
are.
they zap the life out of us. Tell us what migraines are and the signs and symptoms.
So I think that one of the most, let's say, misunderstood things about migraine is most people just equate it to a really bad headache, when in reality, we should think about people having migraine as having a neurological disorder, with headache being one of its potential symptoms. As a matter of fact, you don't even necessarily have to have headache to have migraine. So migraine encompasses a whole series of symptoms that include, as we already talked about, headache, but other symptoms like light and sound sensitivity, nausea, a feeling of fogginess, or people talk about brain fog oftentimes, dizziness, trouble seeing. So there's a whole wide range of symptoms. And I think the biggest thing that we encounter in our office setting is how often people think they don't have migraine, which might prevent them from coming and seeking medical attention, which might even be something that you can relate to.
hmm I think I equate like migraines. It feels like you have one, you're impacted for a day or two. You have a day of maybe, okay, I feel a little bit better. And then it comes right back all over again. So it's just this vicious cycle that you feel like you can't snap out of. That's how I feel like it was.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people sort of feel like they're walking on eggshells where, any little thing that might go a little bit awry, they don't get a good night of sleep, the weather changes, they, maybe miss a meal, something like that, and boom, you're right back in that migraine cycle. And, I think what you're also alluding to, Myra, which is important, is to recognize just the degree of disability that accompanies migraine. So if you look at the World Health Organization's ratings of disability, migraine is rated as one of the severe disabling conditions that is sort of on par with things like quadriplegia. So, I think everyone would be able to identify that someone who has no use of their arms and legs is severely disabled, but a lot of people don't realize that during a migraine attack, people with migraine are equally disabled.
Absolutely. I remember light would bother me, smells would bother me, screens would bother me. So for my line of work, when I'm looking at a prompter and that movement, it just felt like my brain was about to explode.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like you said, if that's happening on a recurring basis, it can completely interfere with your ability to move on with, a successful career, taking care of your family, and so on. And so I think that's why it's so important that, we have opportunities for people to seek medical attention or further knowledge in improving this condition.
There are different types of headaches, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we feel that pressure, an ocular type of headache. We feel that sinus pressure. We feel that pressure in the back and the forehead. There's different types of pain that we can suffer in our head region. But how is that? Is that a migraine? Is that just a headache? How do we figure that out?
Yeah, so I think that what you're just saying right there is why so many people might come to us thinking, I'm not having migraine because the pain is around my sinus cavities, and so that's probably just a sinus headache, or the pain is in the back of my head, and so that's not migraine. In reality, that's not the case. Migraine pain can be anywhere. It is not a requirement to diagnose someone with migraine to have their pain in one particular location or another. As a matter of fact, something I like to point out is how many people who have self-identified quote unquote sinus headaches in reality, once evaluated by a headache specialist or neurologist, actually end up with a diagnosis of migraine.
How do you diagnose?
Yeah, so migraine is a clinical diagnosis. So contrary to what I think everyone thinks or might see, in pop culture, et cetera, is migraine is not diagnosed by MRI scans. Migraine is not diagnosed by blood work. Migraine is diagnosed as a clinical diagnosis. And so we sit and we talk to someone and ask them the questions of what are the symptoms you're experiencing? Where does it hurt? How does it hurt? So the quickest way to come to a diagnosis of migraine is that it requires two of these four things. So one-sided headache, throbbing or pulsatile in quality of pain, moderate or severe in degree of pain, makes you want to avoid physical activity, and then one of these two things, light and sound sensitivity or nausea. And so, those simple questions can then lead to us getting to a diagnosis of migraine. And then from there, once you get a diagnosis, is talk about ways to improve it.
Yeah, the nausea one, Dr. Plater was big. I remember TMI, but like I would just have to go and throw up. Like that's how much pain I was in. Like it was like, what on earth is happening to me? And why can't I snap out of it?
Absolutely, yeah, and so many people will tell us that the nausea is perhaps even more of a disabling symptom than the pain can be. Just that queasy feeling in their stomach, and then it makes it difficult, right? Because then you can't eat, you can't take medicine, and so on.
Okay. Um, Talk to me about children. Children can suffer from migraines too. Um,
Absolutely.
how do we know? Okay, is it the same? Like, is my kid just having a headache or is this something else?
Yeah, so diagnosing migraine in children is a little bit different than in adults in terms of children with migraine don't necessarily have all of those features that we just sat and talked about that adults tend to have. Sometimes the headaches tend to be not as severe. Sometimes they tend to be a little bit shorter in duration. But children also sometimes will have other migraine related symptoms that are not necessarily pain. Sometimes we think about kids having things like dizziness that can be a migraine symptom, kids just having abdominal pain can be a migraine symptom even without having headache. And so, I think that it's tricky. I think that I would generally say if your child is having recurring headaches where, they're having to lay down, they don't want to act like their normal selves, avoid doing what they enjoy doing, that's time to, sort of seek medical attention.
Um, let's talk about, at one point, 50% of people with migraines, they are not diagnosed. So that's a
Right.
huge. So there's probably a lot of people who are, taking repeated Tylenol, Advil, Excedrin migraine, and they're just, continuously taking those medications to kind of just get by. But there are some really good options. Once again, I feel like this is like my personal life out there, but it's okay. I took Aimovig, which is an injection
Yeah.
once a month. That was helpful. But now I take Qulipta,
Yeah.
which is worked fantastic for me. But there are options and they work.
They do. So I think that there's a couple of points here. Number one is, as you said, about half of people with migraine are not diagnosed. And so if they're not diagnosed, they're definitely not going to be on the right treatment path. And I think a lot of people are just doing what they can to survive. And so, that means reaching for the bottle of whatever's in the cabinet just so you can get through your day. The other thing is I think a lot of people might have tried some medications in the past for migraine and not had great success. And so just kind of quit, seeing what's out there. And as you alluded to, some of these newer medicines that have now been around for about 7 years. So we have been using them, for a while now, really are nice migraine specific medicines. Historically, we were stealing medicines from other families, seizure medicines, blood pressure medicines, etc. And now, like you referenced for yourself, we're using migraine specific medicines to treat migraine, and they really can be life changing treatments for people.
I remember when I started taking the medication, I literally sat in my car because I had a virtual appointment with one of your specialists, and I started to cry with her because I was like, I didn't realize how much of my life I was missing until I was migraine free. And that was just like, oh my God, like, wow, that was so much of my time lost.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that when it just becomes your norm, and your norm is having headache all the time and just, taking what you need to just to survive, that's really what you're doing is you're just surviving. And then once you get better, you move into this thriving stage where you really realize life can be so much better. And that really is the best part of my job is, seeing people who really are at low points where, maybe they're going to lose their job or, they're struggling to get through school. And then, you see them down the road and it's like, hey, I'm doing great. I'm back in school. I'm, excelling in my career. My kids are doing great. And so seeing how people can improve and come along, you said you were crying with it, but we feel equally happy because we were a part of you getting to do the things that you want to do in life and feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very like a huge moment for me to finally feel that relief in life, to be able to function, to be around my children, to be able to, not sit in a dark corner at work or, just needing quiet space or a dark space. It was really, really life-changing for me. Um, we talked a little bit about the medications. How does someone figure out, okay, I've made my appointment. All right, you've diagnosed me, and now I need to figure out what path of I need to take. How do you guys figure out, okay, maybe the injection is for you, maybe this pill is for you, or maybe it's some lifestyle changes? How do we figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that that's the conversation that we have together is, us coming to, first and foremost a diagnosis, and then us, sort of thinking with you of, these are the options available for treatment, and then coming to, a conclusion together to say, you know, my job as your doctor is to think of what treatments would be good fits for you. Then our job working together is to say, here's the pros and cons of these treatments. What are you most comfortable with? Some people aren't comfortable with medicines that require injections. Some people don't like taking pills. Some people don't want to take medicine altogether. And sometimes, it works out that we don't need to use medicines, but a lot of times we do. And so it's just working together. And I really would like to highlight too, is it's not, we don't always hit that home run with the first swing. So sometimes, we might together decide, let's try this. And then we get back together down the road and we say, hey, you know what? That didn't work as well as we wanted it to, but we learned from it that maybe we want to move in this direction. And so I think just continuing to work together really is the best strategy for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes it's like finding the right shoe, right? You have to find out what's comfortable for you. That's why making an appointment is really helpful. But also, you all have an upcoming event that's coming up that has just grown. And this is a chance for the community to come out, ask questions. It's free, open to everybody to figure
Yeah.
out how you can learn about so many different neuro issues, whether it's migraine, whether it's Alzheimer's, I mean, this is where the best of the best come together to answer your questions.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. So on October 11th, we have our annual Neuro Expo. This year, it's going to be at the Louisville Marriott East, and this is an opportunity for the general public to come and, in a more relaxed setting, not a clinical setting, interact with us. We, in the migraine world, me and some of my partners will be giving talks about diagnosing migraine, treating migraine, but then also being available to answer questions. I think a lot of people sometimes might feel nervous or intimidated in a clinical setting where, it's a doctor's office and, I'm nervous. And so I forget the things I want to ask. Or also, I think there's a lot of people out there who are just sort of getting introduced to the idea that maybe I do have a problem that I want to seek attention for. And I think it's a really great opportunity to come and learn more, get a little bit of experience with what's out there and what might be a good fit for you. So yeah, I'm really excited for this.
So we are going to post some information so folks can find out more about the Neuro Expo. But folks can also go to Norton Neuroscience Institute, the website, to find more information about the Neuro Expo. Tell me, Dr. Plato, where do we see, what group of folks do we see migraines more prevalent in? Men, women? Does it hit us at a certain age? All of that.
Yeah, so all of it, right? So migraine affects 13% of the population. So there's a lot of us out there with it. 1 in 4 households have someone with migraine in that house. Um, but specifically, migraine is more prevalent in women than men, so 3 to 1, and really hits in that like 35 to 45 age group most significantly, which, as you pointed out, has a lot of impact on. That's a time when oftentimes people are busy with growing their families, their career is sort of on that, ascent, and, they don't want to be held back when they're doing those things. And migraine sometimes can be the thing holding them back. And so while that's the peak prevalence, migraine affects men, migraine affects children, migraine affects older adults. And that really is, I think, one of the things that I can say about our group is we've got it all. We have specialists who are trained in treating young patients, children. We can treat older individuals. We can treat everyone in between. And so it really doesn't matter who you are. We are capable of handling it all and taking care of those individuals. And I also will highlight, we are going to be at the Neuro Expo having a 1 hour session specifically on migraine in children and adolescents. And so I think that's a big one where parents might want to, look at, getting some more information about what's going on with their kids.
Absolutely. Dr. Plato, I always enjoy having this conversation because finding relief is life changing. And I know that there are a lot of folks that are watching this and just who haven't prioritized themselves, right? We have busy lives. And sometimes we think, well, I'll just pop a Tylenol, take an Advil, and it'll pass. But you don't have
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's so many people out there who are just treading water, surviving, getting by. And I know it's hard. I work a busy job, I've got a family. I know that there's a lot of other things that are grabbing at us for our time. But I think if we can get a hold of it, I think what you'll find is that we can really make life a lot more enjoyable, better, and get you back where you're getting that time back to spend with your family, with your job. And so you're absolutely right, Myra.
How does NNI, Norton Neuroscience Institute, how do you all stand out against everybody else when it comes to treatment and diagnosis?
Well, I think there's a lot of great people out there treating patients. Okay. And so, a lot of really excellent doctors in the community, in the region. I think that the highlight I would say for our program is that our doctors, our nurse practitioners, our center, all of us are trained and have gotten the board certification specific for headache medicine. And so while I'm a board certified neurologist, I am also board certified in headache medicine. And so all of us in our center have achieved that highest level of recognition that we can in terms of our training and our certifications. And we also are involved in an exciting piece of news is we have become an accredited site for a fellowship training program, which means that doctors who are going through their training after completion of their residencies can come and spend a year with us and learn the best ways to treat patients and go on and develop their own practice. And so I'd say that's really the difference maker that sets us apart.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Plato, anything that I am not asking you that you think folks need to know about?
No, I think we've had a really great conversation, as always, and so I just think it's a exciting opportunity for people, and I'd really like to see a lot of people come out. I'll be there, with my partners, and we can address questions that folks have. So thanks for, highlighting this, and I'm just really happy that you're doing so well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. When I met you years ago, I unloaded on you when I was doing a story with you, and you worked me in, got me help right away. So I will never forget that. Thank you so much, Dr. Plato.
All right, have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye bye. Thanks.
Bye.